Okay, good evening, everybody. I'll call to order and acknowledge the town of Ladysmith acknowledges with gratitude this meeting takes place on the traditional territory of the Stuminis First Nation. Members of the public may attend meetings in person at the Ladysmith Senior Center or view the live stream on YouTube. We will start with agenda approval. Ms. Bowman, is there any changes to the agenda this evening?
Yes, Mayor Beeston, there's a correction for item 6.1. It's in the recommendation. That item is the emergency access and zoning bylaw amendment for Lot A, DL 126 Malone Road. The covenant condition stated in the recommendation for the emergency access egress road incorrectly states a 6-meter width, and it should specify 7 meters. So when we get to that part, we'll just make sure that that is what we're looking at.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to accept the amended minute or the amended agenda, please? Councillor Stevens and seconded by Councillor Mackay. All those in favor? None opposed, motion carries. We will rise and report items from the closed session. Items from the closed meeting of Council held September 2nd, 2025, CE 2025-057, that Council direct the Mayor and Corporate Officer to execute the lease and access agreement renewal with Sea Legs Kayak Rentals and Marine Adventures for the use of Transfer Beach Park Eco-Tourism Facility for a 5-year period from October 1st, 2025 until September 30th, 2030, with a 2% increase each year beginning in year 2 as outlined in the agreement. 2, to direct staff to give notice of the town's intent to lease the facility to Sea Legs in accordance with the community charter. And 3, rise and report on this item once the lease agreement has been signed by both parties. Can I get a motion, please? Or no, sorry, don't need one there, just rise and report. My bad. Minutes of the regular meeting of Council held October 7th, 2025. Any errors or omissions noted? No. Can I get the recommendation approved that the minutes of the regular meeting of Council held October 7th, 2025 be accepted? Councillor Mackay, seconded by Councillor Stevens. All those in favor? None opposed? Motion is carried. Proclamations. Color the World Orange Day for Complex Regional Pain Syndrome, CRPS, Reflex Sympathetic Dystrophy, RSD Awareness, November 3rd, 2025. Mayor Beeston has proclaimed November 3rd, 2025 as Color the World Orange Complex Regional Pain Syndrome, CRPS, Reflex Sympathetic Dystrophy, RSD, Awareness Day in the town of Ladysmith. Then move on to development applications regarding emergency access and zoning bylaw amendment, Lot A, DL 126, Malone Road. Recommendation that Council deny the request by the developer of Lot A, District Lot 126, Oyster District Plan VIP 73132, except part in Plan EPP 23747 Malone Road, to install an emergency access egress road through Brown Drive Park. 2, direct staff to bring forward a zoning amendment bylaw for Lot A, District Lot 126 Malone Road for the proposed development described in the October 21, 2025 staff report to Council for first, second, and third readings. And 3, require that the approval of the zoning amendment bylaw be subject to the following conditions as outlined in the October 21st, 2025 staff report to Council. A, housing agreement for the provision of affordable and rental-only housing. B, a covenant limiting residential development to 189 units until downstream sanitary sewer upgrades are completed, and 2, 100 units until a 7-meter paved emergency access egress acceptable to the town engineer is constructed. 2, requiring the developer to take the necessary and reasonable steps upon adoption of the covenant to secure a statutory right-of-way over adjacent lands at the developer's cost for the purpose of constructing the emergency access egress and include town staff in negotiations with adjacent landowners. 3, prohibiting development of the parcel on lot 27 of the proposed subdivision plan as shown in attachment H in the October 21, 2025 report to council until such time as a secondary emergency access is constructed. 4, allowing the town to seek third-party engineering advice at the cost of the applicant for the review of any designs or other engineering submittals related to the emergency access. 5, requiring parkland dedication. 6, removing hazard trees to the satisfaction of the town's arborist within all areas to be dedicated as park. 7, planting a minimum of 2 new trees per principal unit. 8, requiring a development on site to adhere to the recommendations of a wildfire hazard assessment, attachment M of the October 21st, 2025 staff report to council. 9, requiring construction of approximately 160 meters of concrete sidewalk along Malone Road. 10, requiring construction of approximately 650 meters of public trail. And 11, requiring a stormwater management plan. Can I get a motion? Councillor Stevens, and seconded Councillor Gurley. Any discussion? I think Councillor Stevens beat you to it.
I was actually going to move with an addition, so maybe I'll speak to that first. I'd like to add point 4, which would fall under 3.2xi. Based on an email, there was some miscommunication with the planning consultant that the proponent has retained about commercial. So I'll read the motion I'd like to add, or the addition. Direct staff to include in the zoning amendment bylaw amendments to the CD3 zone to require local commercial development when the number of units reaches a specified threshold. I don't know procedurally whether we want to deal with that separately or whether we want to vote down the original one. Sorry to be cumbersome. Yeah. I didn't mean to include this when I moved.
So we could, we've got a recommendation on the floor, open for discussion. So we can add this into that and then go back and do our discussion, correct?
So this could be, sorry. So you've moved and seconded the original.
Yes.
This would be an amendment. You could discuss this and then vote on as the amendment first and then go back
and vote on. Okay. So do I have a motion to amend?
I'll move.
And a seconder? Sorry, I didn't see who did. Okay, Councillor Gurley. Okay, so we're now moving on to discussion of the amendment. So, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. Not that I'm against it. I'm just wondering. I presume that the proponent is aware of this because they've seen it. So, is this something that we're going to drop on them that they don't know about yet, or have had a chance to consider as part of their development?
Okay, I think Mr. Belaboa would be able to clarify that.
Through the chair, this would be news to them. The report was provided to them on Friday, so although we have had discussions about potentially including local commercial in the past, that's not what was in the staff report, obviously, that council has seen, and the developer.
Sorry, can I just clarify, when you say we have had discussions about commercial in the past, was that internal discussions or was that any discussion with the proponent?
Through the chair, it's noted in the council report, the conversation about adding local commercial and the developer being reluctant to go through a public hearing process if we were to add the development permit area.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you. So yeah, at the CPAC meeting, this past July, but the July before, where this initially presented to CPAC, this topic was touched on, and it was favorable, the discussion, as noted by the proponent's consultant and in the staff report. The stumbling block was an understanding that it would require a public hearing, but as the email we received today shows, it doesn't. In fact, it's completely in line with the OCP, chapter and verse, and with this much density, we really wouldn't want to not have neighborhood commercial in the mix based on all the things that are in the OCP supporting it. So I think it's a surprise in the moment, but I don't think it's a surprise in the greater scheme of the 2 years plus we've been kicking this round. So, and I think it's good land use planning, and I can speak to it more. But at this point, I think it's not a surprise entirely, and a pleasant enough one. Thank you.
And Councillor Gurley.
Thank you. Yeah, I have moved it because I support this concept and for the sake of discussion. My preference though would be to allow rather than require. And so I would be all over allowing residential commercial, or what the designation that we use. But I don't feel strongly about allowing it. I mean, requiring it, especially if we're at this point and this is news to the proponent. I would either kick it back to staff for further dialogue with the proponent, or just go with allow.
Okay, Councillor Bertanen.
What do you say?
Okay. Okay.
I like the word allow.
Yeah. Okay. To staff, if we were to defeat this amendment and go back and put the and adopt the original recommendation, would that preclude us from then bringing this to the proponent as a more of a request than a requirement?
Through the chair, council could simply add as a permitted use to the direct staff to add to the zoning amendment bylaw local commercial uses as permitted uses. And council would have a chance to see that bylaw when it comes back for first reading, and staff would also have the opportunity to discuss with the applicant at that time. So the most efficient way to add commercial uses as a permitted use would be to direct staff to do that in the zoning amendment bylaw that is coming back to council, rather than adopting the bylaw as proposed and then bringing them in at some later date.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Okay, through to Mr. Belababa, when you say adopt the bylaw as proposed, as what we're looking at tonight, so that would delay this?
Through the chair, there's no bylaw on the floor tonight. Staff are bringing back a bylaw. That gives council the opportunity to tell staff what they would like us to include in that bylaw. Assuming that those additions don't trigger an OCP amendment, there's no delay in council adding any permitted, directing staff to add any permitted uses to the bylaw if it's done this evening.
Okay. And Councillor Stevens.
Thank you. I will take what I can get. I think our documents and planning documents are pretty clear about supporting this, but I would take what I would get if allowing it. I would caution us to remember that a certain proponent with the big development on the other side of the creek said, let us just build houses and say they'll be commercial, and someday they will be, and they never will be. So allowing is better than nothing, but I do think we need to be cognizant that commercial real estate is not everyone's game, and we're here to kind of make it that way. So, but I will take what I get. So if this were to fail, I would happily introduce another motion to put it in as an allowed use and go from there. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Can I get a vote on the amendment? All those in favor? All those against? Motion is defeated. Mr. Stevens, would you care to introduce another amendment?
I would like to introduce another motion. It would be a number 4.
Or Councillor Stevens, sorry.
Direct staff to include the zoning amendment bylaw amendments permitting local commercial uses in the CD3 zone.
Can I get a motion?
I would move it.
And seconded? And any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. We'll move back to further discussion on the original motion. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. On page 13, item 3, the one at the bottom, allowing the town to seek third-party engineering advice at the cost of the applicant for the review of any designs. I don't believe I've seen that before. Two things I would like an explanation from staff, if possible, why that, and just wondering because these kind of things are increasing the cost of housing, and if we can find ways to limit what a contractors and developers are having to pay, hopefully we can keep the cost of housing down. So just why is this in there? I don't believe I've seen it before.
Staff?
Through the chair, we have included that requirement before in other files. The town does not have in-house transportation planning resources, and we have limited engineering resources in-house. In this case, it would actually expedite a review of this because our engineering staff would not have to take the time to review that design. The other component of this that is important is that this is not the developer's original preferred route, and so third-party engineering review is similar to like third-party appraisal in a land acquisition scenario where it can be used to help resolve disputes about design or the viability of the route. So that is why this particular clause has been added.
Thank you. Councillor Tannen?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Question and I guess then a comment. The seven meter what is it?
Access.
6.13B2, I guess. 100 units into a 7 meter paved emergency. Can I ask why? Because I thought I read, and I just found it, NFPA standards allows secondary emergency access be one lane with a minimum width of 5 meters. So I'm just curious why we're going with 7.
Thank you. Through the chair, the 5 meters versus the 7 meters. So 5 meters is a recommendation through under NFPA for a fire lane, and 7 meters is a one-way road travel.
Two-way road travel.
Two-way road travel would be.
That was two-way.
Yeah. My apologies.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yep, absolutely.
So I guess it's not really answering my question. Why do we need a 7 meter if a 5 meter is good enough?
I think
Am I reading this
well,
report wrong?
when you went back and read the original recommendations that came from the park board and the fire chief, they stated in there that they didn't believe a 5 meter fire lane would be adequate, that for emergency access it would have to be a 2-lane road.
Parks and Rec did?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we voted theirs down.
No,
So
but
I'm
that
just
was
curious
the recommendations that came through from
Right, but we voted that down.
Yeah.
So I was just curious on what is the necessity. I don't know how to ask it more simply. What's the minimum standards it needs to be? Is it 7 or is it 5?
Apologies, that is correct. So 5 meter is a one-way travel, and a 7 meter is actually slightly less than the recommended two-way travel. So a one-way road creates challenges through, particularly in the case of Brown Drive Park, but even looking at other ones, a one-way travel is typically not sufficient for what we're hoping to accomplish.
Mr. Balboa.
Through the chair, I would add our OCP references the NFPA standard, but it does note that more stringent requirements would be considered in certain circumstances. In this case, circumstances that were considered by staff in making the recommendation include the overall size of the development, so upwards of be up to 600 units, its proximity to the wildfire interface, and the length of the emergency access route. So you can imagine a short one-way lane is easy to manage traffic flow, a large volume of traffic flow, but a much longer travel lane, and this would be fairly long, it becomes more challenging, and so therefore wider widths are preferred, which is the rationale for staff's recommendation.
I have a comment, but you can go around.
Any further discussion? Did you have a follow-up, Jeff?
Nobody else?
No.
Okay,
Sorry,
I guess,
is your hand up? Okay, okay,
no,
okay.
no, you had.
Okay.
I just have a couple of general comments. Man, talk about kicking stuff around and flipping back and forth pages. This was one for the record books. It's the secondary route or the route recommended is certainly without it doesn't isn't without its challenges, but I think it is on balance the best functional answer to the problem in front of us. One thing I'll tell you, my sort of secret fear has been that this would morph into a road, and that if we built too much infrastructure, that temptation was there. I think with bridge pinch points and because it's a right of way and shared property and everything, that we're insulated, and that raises my level of comfort a lot. That we're not actually unintended consequences. Making a land use boo-boo in terms of doing this. So I think the thing I've started to focus on once I got past that is that this is really the iterations of what this piece of property has supposed to have done with it pre-2014 and then 2014 and then through this last couple of years, this process, we've got a better and better project. I really think it's more reflective of the current plans we have, the housing mixes we need, and so while the crowd maybe came for the access, I think we're all here to celebrate a pretty good development that might have some commercial in it, I hear too. So that would be my general comments on it. Other than that, I'm happy to vote. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion, Councillor Mackay?
I'll just chime in with just commenting that I am happy that our request of staff to pursue or encourage the pursuing of an alternate route rather than through Brown Drive Park has led to a hopefully potentially good result. I think all things considered for the neighborhood, it's going to be a better choice. So I'm happy to see it on here, written as it is. Thank you.
Go back to Mr. Katana and then over to you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, and I realize I'm in the minority. I wasn't saying I 100% thought it should go through Brown Drive, but I think it deserved a better conversation because the Parks and Rec Committee originally said they were actually quite excited about this because this was going to solve some of the amenities that they wanted to put in there, and we were going to be able to have the developer do it, not taxpayers do it. Unfortunately, I feel that the conversation got a little bit hijacked, and people thought it was going to be a service road. They thought that all these different things that they thought it was going to be. Quite honestly, this emergency thing is probably never ever going to be used in all reality. And if it is, maybe once in 50 years, right? And, you know, but we missed that. I get it. I'm in the minority on that. I wish that we would have gone that way. It feels like we're putting so much, I guess what my concern is, we're putting so much focus on this secondary egress that will probably never be used. I'm just worried it's making us less business friendly again and making things harder for developers. So I will support this because I think it's obvious that that's the way it's going to go. But I just want to say my 2 cents. Thanks.
Councillor Stevens.
Thank you. I was going to say another thing, but I will agree with Councillor Vertanen. That's very much been my concern about this. That I don't care. I've said to more than one person, I'm almost agnostic about where the route goes, but I want it to be a rational discussion, not one based on a whole bunch of misinformation. The service road being the case in point conjures up vehicles driving on it constantly all day. This thing could be like a fire hydrant, sit there its whole life. You want it to work, but it might never have to. And I think it's a big fire hydrant, but it could in fact be like that. The thing that sort of turned me past, and even in the last 24 hours, was the BC building code requirements that it has to be clearable all year, and I just couldn't conceive of. And believe me, I'd sent staff some, look at this grid stuff you can put and have grass and we can mow it and be. I really think we'd need something, if it's going to be plowable, that it's going to have to be wide enough to be that imposing thing that's mentioned. I would have loved to have a combination, exactly a shorter route that's more level, that's easier to plow, that was paved in the middle and structural, aesthetically pleasing greenery on either side, but would do the job. I don't think we can do that with the BC requirements, but excellent point that the discussion needs to be about the facts, not not other things. The question I was going to ask for staff, and I'd be remiss if they could just outline. We've got we'll have a covenant for 10% of affordability. Is that correct? And a covenant on rental stock. If you could just run through those numbers again, sort of where we are. Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair, there will be a housing agreement bylaw coming to council with those details, which the proponent is committing to 10% affordable units in the area C and 30% of rental only for that area as well.
Any further discussion? I will call the question. All those in favor? None opposed, motion carries. Committee minutes, Parks, Recreation, Culture Advisory Committee, September 17th, 2025. Recommendation that council receive the minutes of Parks, Recreation, and Culture Advisory Committee for September 17th, 2025. Motion? Councillor Gurley, seconded Councillor Mackay. Any discussion? All those in favor? None opposed, motion carries. Community planning, I can barely see Amanda. Sorry, Councillor Jacobson. Like, there we go. Okay, you're literally just a dark screen there. So, Community Planning Advisory Committee, October 1st, 2025. Recommendation that council receive the minutes of the Community Planning Advisory Committee meeting held October 1st, 2025. Can I get a motion? Councillor Stevens, seconded. Councillor Gurley. Any discussion? All those, I'll call the question. All those in favor? None opposed. Motion carries. Reports, the Town of Ladysmith flag renewal. Recommendation that council approve the Public Art Committee recommendation to proceed with option 1 as presented in the October 21st, 2025 staff report by the Parks, Recreation and Culture Department for the Town of Ladysmith flag redesign and direct staff to include $10,000 in the 2026-2030 financial plan. Can I get a motion? Councillor Gurley, seconded Councillor Vertanen. I will open for discussion. Councillor Vertanen, Gurley, Stevens, Patterson.
Hey, thanks to staff. And this has been going on a long time. We started talking about this back in the first one. Love everything about it except for the cost. Can we maybe get a little information on $10,000? Just felt a little bit higher to me than what we originally, than the original plan.
Through the chair, the Public Art Committee, I think, worked through the entire process of what it would take, including the public engagement, the consulting fees, the fee to refine any work that was developed, and came up with the cost of $10,000. But Councillor Mackay might have.
If I could just add in, I do believe that also included the actual producing of the flags. It's the whole thing, and it's up to that amount. It may not be that amount. We would hope that it perhaps wouldn't, but we really felt that the giving the opportunity for public engagement was a key piece. We also thought it was very important that it actually be produced by a graphic artist with very specific rules being followed for flag development, because there's actually books written on it. There's very specific things should be done for a flag. And so I think if we're going to do this, it's worth doing it properly. So, that was, like I said, that was the sort of outside. We're hoping that it would maybe be even less than that.
Okay, Councillor Gurley.
Thank you. Yeah, great job, staff and committee members for the groundwork so far and for this awesome list of criteria. These are really great points, and I'm excited to see what we can come up with. I, in my other role, my day job, I'm doing fundraising right now, and I just started thinking about this in terms of sponsorships. What if we throw it out to a business or person who would like to sponsor the town's new flag, and we can give them some recognition and invite them to the unveiling ceremony and thank them from the bottom of our hearts. Is there a way to do that? Does staff have any thoughts on that?
Through the chair, when you're working with artists or any professionals in that manner, you have to be very cautious of what would be termed spec work, with the expectation that people would be producing work in their professional lives at a lower cost or a discounted rate. That is an option, but the concern or the thing to consider is the idea of spec work, and especially with artists. So
I wouldn't ask an artist to sponsor it, or a discount, just a donor. Yeah.
Through the chair, my apologies. I think I misunderstood that.
And Councillor Stevens.
I bet you didn't know I'm a member of the North American Vexillological Association. No, I'm not. I don't. Yeah, I'm right into flags. A comment. I would echo Councillor Gourlay. The best practices are really neat. We've got some work to do. I in terms of the agenda order, I thought, oh, if only the community banner program was the item before, because I got thinking, why? And I'm probably putting Councillor Mackay and the Director of Parks and Rec on the spot, but why did the committee sort of go this way as opposed to the process that we've used for the banners for a number of years? Was it manageability, or I'm going to get my answer. Thank you.
I might, and please, Mr. I want to say Mr. Chris, but it's not Mr. Mr. Barfoot. I'm still on Ontario time right now. We felt it was really important to have a very specific process, and just putting it out and taking submissions of flags that people would produce the way that the banners are done, we felt didn't answer the process that needs to be followed around public consultation, and also the need for keeping it within the graphics that are specifically around flag development. And I see staff having a better answer.
Through the chair, excellent comment too. To compare the two programs or the two ideas, the public art banner would be considered that sort of temporary public art banner. It's something that could you challenge the viewers. It allows you to know that that's on display for 1 to 2 years, whereas the committee felt very strongly that the flag would be timeless. So one, you can challenge the viewer, and if they got negative response, you knew it was just temporary. This has that more permanency to it.
Councillor Patterson.
I was just thinking about those episodes on Big Bang where he has his imminent fun with flags. Yeah, here we go. I was quite disappointed when I saw the $10,000 and the process, and not being knocking everybody. I thought this would be a simpler process and getting the public involved, getting some designs. I don't see the need for a graphic artist. I can see the need for getting some designs from the public and designs from the Arts Council for those who want to submit on a community basis and have a look and pick the best, the worst, or combine them. But this seemed to evolve into more of a process and cost than what I anticipated years ago. And quite honestly, I think maybe we should put it on the back burner for now.
I'm going to interject here before I go for the second round here. When I saw this come on the agenda and I read the background on it, I was actually really surprised. When I was running, I spoke to a lot of people, and they gave me advice. They said one thing that's going to happen is people are all going to come up and say, "Oh, we want you to, cut taxes or not increase taxes so much." And they said, "But, then you got to decide what are you going to cut." And I thought, okay, fine. Well, I'm looking at this and going, well, this would be one thing, because quite frankly, we're in a recession. We're going into our budgeting. We're looking for savings. Our taxpayers are against the wall. We have a lot of things coming down the pipe between some very big asks for things that will absolutely enhance our community. We have people wanting to look at things like active transportation. We have had numerous requests for improvements to sidewalks, which are a safety issue that are going to save people's lives. We are downloading lots of costs onto some of our community organizations. And in my mind, there are spend money times and there are save money times. And when you're in a save money time, it's not the time for aesthetic improvements. I can't support this. I don't think I would want to go out and try and justify this to anybody at a cost of, $10,000. 8 of these little things would add up to a 1% property tax increase. And frankly, I don't think I could justify going to people and telling them I was going to increase the property taxes for things like this. So I will now go back to Councillor Stevens had, and then Councillor Mackay.
Thank you. So going back to my original question, that's more than I sort of envisioned and put together. I see more value for the money than I sort of thought this was going to be a graphic designer in a vacuum chamber coming back. If it's including the public process, I think there is value in that. I'm going to maybe make a recommendation in a second around the cash amount, but I think there is. The point's really well taken that we've picked the banners, and some years some people really love them. A lot of people, well, at least a majority, love them because we picked them. But other years, someone's not so hot on a design, and this is permanent. So, so having an element of community consultation versus a process where I was going to throw it out there, comes back, and we all decide. That's a hell of a wait without any community feedback on the matter. Councillor Batan's made the point. We started this 2 years ago. This inquiry, something like that. So there's work gone into it already. So I don't like to throw. I'm wondering, just throw it out there. Do we want to reduce the amount a bit? I mean, you can express it with a decimal point in terms of the global budget of this town, but it is money. Do we want to bring the amount down slightly so we can arrive at a point of consensus? If we can all agree that we need a good process because this thing's forever, or at least 30 or 40, 50 years, should we just do as well on the process as we can, but just tighten the budget a bit? Thank you.
Councillor Mackay.
Thank you. And I'll address that specifically. I'm not insensitive to the fact that times are tough. I've used the words myself. What I would request that we do then, if that is a consensus that now is not the time. It has been 2 years in the making to get us to the point that we're at with regards to the plan of how to get there. How are we going to do it? We're going to go through the process that's been recommended if we adopt it by the Public Art Committee, which is one of our committees. But the timing of it, it doesn't mean that it has to be done this year. Maybe it gets put off by a year. Is there a way that we could word this so that it was brought back to council for consideration for completion of the project next year? And if it still isn't the right time, could be brought back the year after that. I just don't want to see when someone looks at the flag again and decides it's an embarrassment, as it had been. That was the reason it got brought to us, if we remember back. We were publicly teased on our flag. can we not have to go back to the very beginning of it? So it takes us 2 years to get to this point, and as opposed to watering down the amount to get it done, we're kind of then drifting off into the possibility of getting something that we're not 100% happy with. It. I'd rather see us be able to address it properly and fully than do it in a poor manner. I would encourage us to consider that. So just through to staff, is it possible to have this come back to staff in another year? Thank you.
Through the chair, it could be included in the financial plan as $10,000, but the funding could come from grant. So if we didn't find a grant in 2026, then that would just be carried forward to 2027, and then so we wouldn't fund it through taxation or reserve or anything like that. It would be funded through, but it would be identified that it's something, a project that is on the books, we might say, to complete, but the funding would be based on a grant fund.
So we would then just keep an eye open for some kind of possible grant. It's a much better solution.
That's correct. I mean.
Then. Okay.
And if it didn't materialize and council kept seeing it on there, then council might say, hey, we do want to move this along. This is a better year where we have less, other expenses, or, it's a better year inflation wise, and you might want to include it in the budget through taxation, or we might have a different pot of money.
So just leaving it as written, then it already leaves it open to no commitment on specifically when it would happen?
I don't believe the recommendation
it doesn't
says
in the report. It has a date, but is that?
Can I interject? Could we ask to have this brought back by staff with the recommendations as described by?
Through the chair, the report is just asking to add it to the financial plan, right, which then would come to council for consideration each year. Okay. It's not a commitment at this time.
Okay. So then we're not actually risking having to commit to the money in the budget this year as much as when it comes time for that discussion, we can say through grant funding, preferably through grant funding.
Through the chair, yes, that's
okay.
correct.
All right. Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. Just as far as the grant funding, does that need to be written into this? Question through to staff, I guess.
When it's brought up as a budget line or brought up to be passed through.
Okay.
Through the chair, staff has noted that as when it comes in the financial plan for consideration, we'll make that note as a funding source.
Councillor Stevens.
Oh, okay, just to be crystal clear then. So there is a invisible with funds to come, the usual little add-on that we get on things like this, with funds to come from a silent one there. Okay, so that raises comfort level, I think. And because it's spanning a 4-year financial plan, it also, you can look at it every year, say yes or no. Well, say no potentially, and so I think my comfort comes up with that, and grant funding, of course, or some other less than innocuous in terms of tax amounts fund would be great. Thank you.
Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? None opposed. Motion carries. 2026 Community Banner Program Theme Selection. Recommendation that Council approve the 2026 theme, A Future Imagined, for the Community Public Banner Program. Any motion? Councillor Bertanen, seconded Councillor Mackay. Any discussion? Councillor Bertanen.
Just really quick, I just want to acknowledge the Arts Council for the work. I know it's a lot of work that goes into this every year. I agree with Councillor Stevens. Once in a while, there might not be one, but they have far more hits than misses, in my opinion. And just keep up the good work. We really appreciate it.
Councillor Mackay.
I just say we have managed to get another youth representative on our committee, and extremely happy to have a youth voice at the table. It was always very effective in the past. But it was actually very much part of their discussion, their contribution to discussion, that came up with this theme this year. And I know her energy will be behind getting submissions and the discussion with it. So really, really happy with our results. So I can't wait to see the banners.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? None opposed, motion carries. Swim to Survive, request to support. Recommendation that council approve allocating $5,500 to support the Swim to Survive program requested from the Nanaimo Ladysmith Public Schools for the 25-26 school year, with $3,359 to come from the 2025 Grant in Aid Council discretion budget, and the remainder to be funded from next year's Grant in Aid Council discretion budget. I get a motion, please? Councillor Mackay, seconded Councillor Gurley. Any discussion? Councillor Mackay.
I really support this. The Swim to Survive program is a long-standing one with the school district, and as explained in the report, it fell to the wayside during COVID. It used to come with full funding, which was fantastic, and it's in a seaside community like our own. For a youth or who eventually would become an adult, potentially, to have no swimming skills except perhaps how to do the very basics is life-saving. And if we can support our community by having all our grade 3s and 7 students participate in this program, I think it is an absolute win and essential. Thank you.
And Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. And I think teaching all youth, everybody to swim is a really good thing. Just wondering, it also includes North Oyster, which has got students from Area H. Will they be contributing to this program for their portion, or will it be us in total?
So through the chair, through regional recreation, Area H would be contributing to it, but the funds are being requested to come out of council's discretionary funds, which would just be the taxpayers of Ladysmith that would be contributing to that.
So there is, as far as we know, there's no contribution from Area H?
Not directly to the town, sorry, through the chair, not directly to the town, but since it is a school district 68, which is Nanaimo Ladysmith, it would be encompassed in that funding pot. That would be offsetting some of the funds. It's not completely $5,500. That's the town cost. I'll pass it back to Director Barfoot.
Thank you. Through the chair, the $5,500 is to cover the staff costs. Regional recreation does contribute to the facility through operating costs and all the expenses that go along with it. So that's also a part of it. So in a roundabout way, yes, Area H does contribute to the overall use of the pool. But for this specific request, it's to cover the staffing costs that regional recreation would not be a part of at this time.
Okay. And then I had Councillor Gurley, or sorry, Councillor Bertanen, then Councillor Gurley, and then Councillor Stevens.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, obviously I support any program that helps with their children's water safety. So it's not the what I've got a couple of concerns about, it's the how. First question, is anybody keeping an eye on the duplication of services? Because Hospital Auxiliary just donated a whack of money to LPS for swimming lessons. So is somebody making sure that we're not different program, but it's swimming lessons? So I'm just, is somebody keeping an eye that we're not kind of double doing something here?
Through the chair, I don't, excuse me, through the chair, I'm not 100% familiar with the other program, but I don't think it's targeting the same group of children.
Different group. Okay. Then I guess my other concern or question, why does it have to come from grants and aid? Because we're cutting dollars to our own community groups that need it and are complaining to me all the time that we're cutting it, and now we're helping a school district that's got a $150 million budget. I'm just curious. Yeah, they're covering the busing, which I think is probably a drop in the hat. But where I guess I'm just, does it have to come from grants and aid, or can it come from somewhere else? Because it feels weird that we're helping this other organization provide a thing. I don't know.
Through the chair, The grants and aid program has a budget in there that is specifically for council to determine if they want to use it or not. It has not been spent at this point in time for that council discretion amount. So if you recall, we have a policy where we put, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, a large portion for the application based, a large or a smaller portion for waiving of fees, and another is just council discretion. That's how the whole grant and aid budget is made up. So the council has allocated the application based. Most, like, I think there's maybe a few $100s left in that one. Waiving of fees is going through as community groups use the pool or facilities or A or some other place. And then there's this last bucket or funds that council has not spent in 2025. So that is why it just seemed like that one fit with this program. Should council want to use another budget, yes, we can definitely come back and say that could come from council's public relations budget, which is often where it's used to pay for some of the sponsorships of golfing tournaments and stuff like that. But that's just the idea that this money was not utilized. It's in November. Don't see it's going to be, October. Don't think it's going to be used too much between now and the end of the year, and that's why it's suggested to come out of this budget.
Okay, Councillor Gurley.
Yeah, my question was about the source of the funding as well, and that answer makes complete sense. It's something that, like, we just got this invitation, so we're responding with money that's not otherwise allocated. Totally support it. In the future, it'd be great to roll this into the budget for FJCC or some other thing that we can incorporate into the financial plan, so they have a predictable, so they know where we're at, that we're planning to do it, so that we all know that this is the plan. That would be great.
Councillor Stevens.
Building on my colleagues, it occurred to me, and this, you might be thinking, oh, here goes another hole in our budget belt here, but is it possible in the future, I think that this horse is out of the barn here, but to incorporate some in kind, or, I mean, we have the waiving of fees budget, but not off the books, but off the books kind of, to say, okay, we'll give you 3,000, but we can waive the lifeguards that day, or and absorb that cost, or is that just a fool's game? I'm just wondering to bring it down. I wholeheartedly agree with Councillor Gurley of putting it as a budget line in the regional recreation and saying we're going to spend X amount every year doing this, but in our own house, is there anything we can do to sort of free up or lower the amount? I guess is my question. Thank you.
Through the chair, Councillor Stevens, something like a reciprocal agreement, is that what you're thinking of? So the town would have use of, say, a gymnasium at the school or classroom space, and in lieu of that, there would be so much time budgeted for the town to utilize that for their purposes, and then the offset is using the pool. I think the problem that we might run into there is that the operating budget for the pool is under the regional recreation now. The regional recreation is actually a different school district than this school district. So it does get a little bit complicated when we look at reciprocal agreements. So it might work in a different place, but we can explore different avenues when we bring the program back. This was just to get it up and running for the current ask. And there is alternatives there that if council decides that they don't want to support it this year, that we could support it in future years.
Okay, I have a question. I've spoken to our local PAC who have a very strong swimming lesson program that they have worked for years to incorporate, and I'm just wondering, has there been any conversation? Somebody else did bring up whether there was a duplication of services here, because looking at the students that are involved in here, especially the fact that it's primary school students, well, I know the PAC provides swimming lessons for our primary level students, and so is this is this somehow a duplication of services, or has there been a conversation to find out if this program could be incorporated with the services that the PAC is already providing, mostly through fundraising and their own work, that we could incorporate it with what they're doing, and it might even come in at a lesser cost. I'm not sure, Tim, if you've got anything to say about that.
Through the chair, we haven't had any conversations further with the PAC. We received the request to support the program. It's important to note that these were grant-funded programs in the past. Those funds are no longer available. Other municipalities are supporting that, so on both districts, those municipalities are supporting the Swim to Survive program, which targets these age groups. With my experience, I think some of the other swim programs that are out there that PACs are supporting are targeting those kids that the Swim to Survive program didn't target, so that there was that continuum. I can't confirm that at this point, but I can definitely bring that information back if council wants that information. But as for a duplication of services, I don't have that answer, but I don't believe that these are targeting the same grades of children. They're different.
Okay. Could I ask you to well, I'm not necessarily against this program. I would like to see if going forward, especially, we can maybe work out, find out if there is any possible duplication, or if there's a way of incorporating this in what PAC does and might be able to be done more efficiently, and to make sure that we aren't in fact duplicating. So I would like to see us look into that a little bit, if that's possible.
Through the chair, we can definitely reach out to the various PACs that represent the different schools that would be involved. But as far as cost goes, these are staff costs, so there's not a more efficient way to look at that. I think what's presented is the bare bones of what the cost would be to the town.
Okay, thank you very much. And Councillor Gurley?
Yeah, as a parent with kids and swimming lessons throughout the year, I don't see pretty much any overlap between the two programs. Swimming lessons are needed, but the focus there is endurance and skill and proper form, technique, competitiveness. This is 3 lessons for survival. If you fall off the dock, how do you survive? Yeah. So this is meeting people who they might not afford to have swimming lessons, so they can get a base level of safety, and then awesome, the PAC can come in and help. One round of swimming lessons is 10 lessons, 10 or more, and this is 3. So that would be great above and beyond, but this is going to really make sure that no one falls through the cracks. And then at that grade 3 level, again at the grade 7 level, it's pretty different to me. It sounds pretty different than swimming lessons.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And none opposed, motion carries. Bylaws for adoption, 2026 permissive tax exemption bylaw 2025, number 2223. Recommendation that council adopt 2026 permissive tax exemption bylaw 2025, number 2223. Can I get a motion? Councillor Mackay, seconded. Councillor Jacobson. Any discussion? Councillor Bertanen.
Sorry, I was away at work last week. Are we allowed to make an amendment? Because the Ladysmith Senior Citizen Housing Society is not on this bylaw. So are we allowed to make an amendment to this at this point? Or
I'm going to pass that on to Sue.
Did I miss the vote last week?
Through the chair, it would be best if we passed this bylaw as it stands. And then if you choose to add a secondary permissive tax bylaw that includes the Dogwood Drive address you were mentioning, we can also take a look at first 3 readings for that. So the problem with permissive tax exemption bylaws, or not the problem, but the specialty about them, is that they have to be adopted by October 31st and they have to go through public notification. So we want to make sure that all the ones that are on the current bylaw get accepted. For the one that you want to bring to tonight, we would be able to do that as long as we have a special meeting on October 31st. So you could, once this bylaw is looked at, you could bring that up yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay, you would like to put forth a motion? Okay.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion then that Ladysmith Senior Citizen Housing Society at 117 Dogwood Drive be added to the 2026 permissive tax exemption bylaw.
Councillor Patterson. Okay, thank you. So we have another motion discussion. Councillor Gurley.
Yeah, I'm not going to support the motion based primarily on the fact that they didn't fulfill the bylaw requirement. I don't want to break our bylaw. We already broke protocol a month ago when we admitted a letter with zero notice for any of us to properly process it, or zero ability for staff to vet it or to inquire about further information. Kind of just took a letter, put it on the agenda, broke our own bylaw. That was not best practice. This was a property that hadn't actually applied for this until the property became vacant, and it's not, still currently does not fulfill the bylaw. If there's a problem with the bylaw, let's look at that. But I'm not comfortable voting against staff's recommendation and our own bylaw based on a letter that we should not have admitted to an agenda and a process that was flawed. I would love to support this when they are eligible according to the bylaw, and we can give them a fair treatment like all the other applicants, and staff can help them go through the process. We need affordable housing for seniors, among other demographics. I want to support it when it's an eligible project. Thank you.
Councillor Patterson. I'll get to you, Councillor.
Thank you. We did accept it at one time, and this particular volunteer group has a very strong track record of two very successful senior housing projects that are on this list for permissive tax exemption. And so what we're saying is that you're doing a great job, you're very successful, but we're not putting our support behind you. And because unfortunately sometimes volunteers miss deadlines, they have other things on their minds besides the work that they're doing to better the community. And I can't understand why we approved it at one time and then didn't approve it last week. So to me, by not doing this, is saying to these people that want to supply more senior housing that have two very successful projects, to me it would be a slap in the face. Thank you.
Councillor Jacobson. Oh, no? Sorry, I thought you saw your hand up. Okay, Councillor Vatanen, give it a second.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, kind of along the lines of what Councillor Patterson said. I'm sorry, but it just sounds so very corporate. Oh, you didn't follow our policies. You didn't follow our thing. Yeah, these are, these are volunteers who have proven track record for sure. I mean, I don't know. I like to think that we're a community, not a corporation. They've asked for this, and I think they deserve it. And I think the intent that we passed was for it to come back, regardless if it goes against policy or whatever, or it's not best practice. Oh, guess what? Maybe we don't always provide best practice. I don't know, but if it means not providing best practice to support a group like this, I'm all over it. So I think it'd be a real shame that this table doesn't support a group like the Ladysmith Senior Citizen Housing Society.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. I'd just like to point out to that when the Resources Center built the Heart on the Hill, they had no experience whatsoever in building. They had no experience whatsoever in housing other than the shelter down on First Avenue. Yet we gave them tax exemptions. We gave them DCC exemptions. We gave them thousands of dollars free. And yet we're looking at a group that is trying to do the same thing, have a track record, and I think we're looking at $4,000. What's good for one isn't good for the other. Doesn't work for me.
Councillor Stevens.
I could say I'm a changed man. I filled out the applications for the DCC waivers and the tax permissive tax exemptions. And I'm firmly a housing's a provincial responsibility. We should act like a guy now, having been through the process. I have no doubt that this group have all the energy and good intentions in the world. Developing affordable housing in the 2000s is not developing affordable housing in the 1970s, like their existing stock. It's a hellish process. The LRCA was blessed with some former government bureaucrats and proposal writers, so we had a lot of capacity on our board to pull things off. But at this stage of the game, really the focus should be on design development and getting it a little further along, so that you can make the case for this other money. That's what it's all about. Securing money, get you more money. Winning one set of people, but it shouldn't start with the municipality. Honestly, if I had to do over again, I would not be requesting DCC waivers for 314 Bullard, because I know what an infrastructure deficit is now, and I didn't at the time. I wouldn't have asked for permissive tax exemptions, because I now know the books better than I did. So, I think that's all probably I have to have to say. It is a tough situation, absolutely for sure, and it's affordable housing is not for the faint of heart, no pun intended, and it can go off the rails financially very easily. It's why we get pushback from developers when we say, "Can you put affordable housing components in?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't know about that," because the numbers actually get really tight really fast. Especially if you're trying to provide housing for 500 and something bucks a month. So, yeah, call me jaded, call me too experienced, but I can't at this time support this. But I'm wishing them all the luck in the world, because I know what's involved. Thank you.
Any further discussion? I'm just going to add my 2 bits worth. When we have a community group as hardworking and dedicated as our seniors group, who have put these things together in the past, to now pull back support and say, you have to prove yourselves to us. I'm thinking we should be doing everything we can to encourage this kind of a project in our community. And when I know that they're going to put the work and the time in. I know they have some very, very strong people behind this project. And I think this is one where we should be working with them to do everything we can. As Councillor Stevens mentioned, every penny counts when you're trying to put something like this together. And I understand, I just spoke to the fact that times are tough and people are hurting, and we have to try and keep our taxes to a reasonable amount. When you look at something like this, I'd be willing to pay $1 a year to support seniors housing in my community. And that's kind of what it seems to almost come down to put on the other taxpayers. So I would support the seniors in this one. So if there's no further discussion, I will call the question. All those in favor? And those opposed? And the motion fails. The bylaw status sheet is included. Is there any new business? No? Okay, we will move to question period. Maximum of 15 minutes is allotted for questions. Persons wishing to address council during question period must be Town of Ladysmith residents, non-resident property owners, or operators of business. Individuals must state their name and address for identification purposes. Questions put forth must be related to items on the agenda. Questions must be brief and to the point. Each speaker may have up to 3 minutes total for questions and responses. Questions shall be addressed through the chair and answers given. Likewise, debates with or by individual council members or staff members are not allowed, and no commitments shall be made by the chair in replying to a question. Matters which may require action of the council will be referred to a future meeting of council. Please state your name and address.
Robert Johnson, 526 First Avenue, Ladysmith, BC. My question is in regards to agenda item 6.1, the emergency access zoning bylaw. I'm confused in the wording, and maybe you can help me with the wording. It reads, deny the request for developer except the part to install an emergency access road through Brown Drive. So you're denying the request, but you're exempting the part that allows them to go through the park. And I thought the intent was not to go through the park. Can you explain that?
Mr. Bellaboa, do you want to clarify that for him, if you're able to at this time?
Through the chair, the resolution is clear. It reads, deny the request by the developer of legal description to install an emergency access / egress road through Brown Drive Park.
But the part that's throwing me in the curve is except the part.
Yeah, through the chair, that's part of the legal description. It's
Okay.
simply a reference to the
Thank you.
property.
So it's not saying except for the part
Okay,
going
thank
through
you
the
very
park.
much. That
Okay.
clarifies that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
The other question I have is section 7. Planting a minimum of 2 trees per principal unit. With SMU, you're allowing up to 4 units on a standard business side lot. So what constitutes a principal unit? And if there are 4 that are considered principal unit on a standard size lot, you're putting 8 trees on? Is that correct?
I don't know. I would have to get some further information for that and get back to you on that.
Okay. And then another one in regards to 7.1, you're talking about wanting commercial in regards to the area. You didn't decide what percentage or number of units or what is going to be considered commercial within this project. And the last thing I have is a comment. When we were talking about the flags, you were talking about grant money. We have to remember that grant money is still taxpayers' money. So if you're talking about we can't afford the money from our taxpayers, we're going for grant money from the community, which is taxpayers of the province or whatever, and it's still taxpayer money. And is that grant money best utilized for, I'm going to use a term that I don't like, a vanity project like a flag versus a necessity like helping people in trouble? Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Can you just press the button with the person on it there so the red light comes on? Thank you.
Philip Moss, 720 Parks Place. I came to ask a question about the Welcome to Ladysmith sign, but it's not on the agenda. Just on your website, you say that the public can have their say and you can ask a question. But now I see there's a specification.
A way to send your question in is you could send an email. If you sent it to mayor@ladysmith.ca, it would go to all council members and senior staff. So you can send a query in like
Will
that.
there be a response to that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay. I'll call for adjournment. Motion seconded. All those in favor? None opposed? Thank you.